Hi, I'm Cameron McKenzie. I'm the editor-in-chief over at the serverside.com, and today I wanted to take you through the tasks of creating a little application. I've started Rational Application Developer, and I want to create some portlets, demonstrate what a Hello World portlet would look like, and examine what the contents of a portal or portlet application would look like. I've created a little workspace here called /tss/portlets. I'm going to click OK. The tool will show up, and from here, basically I've got nothing. What I want to do is I want to create a handsome little portlet application. So how do I do that? Well, if WebSphere Application Developer, Rational Application Developer is installed with the portlet tooling, and you say, hey, I want to create a new something, one of your options should be to create a portlet application. Now right off the bat, I don't see that here. It's probably just because I'm in the J2EE perspective, Java EE perspective. But if I click on Other, you notice I got this option to create a portlet project. This is pretty cool. It's got a large number of wizards here. I haven't actually created a portlet application yet, so it's telling me that I need to enable the portlet development facility. Yeah, I'll definitely do that because I want to create a portlet application. And it'll ask me a whole bunch of different things. What's the project going to be named? Well, I'll just call it TSS Portlets. Why not? Will we add this project to an ear? I'm comfortable with doing that. Will we create a basic portlet? I don't mind creating a basic portlet, but I'm not going to call it TSS Portlets. I'm going to call it the Hello World Portlet. And that just makes sense because, well, when you start off with something, you want to start off with Hello World. Now, as you can see, here it actually wants to create a JSR 168 faces portlet. Geez, that's definitely not what I want to do. So I'm going to modify that facility. I'm going to create a JSR 286 portlet. I'm just going to make it a basic empty portlet. Not a basic empty portlet, that's something different. I'm just going to make it an empty portlet. Even when I create an empty portlet, it manages not to be that empty. You can even take a look at some of the managed features in here. Nothing too crazy. We got some WebSphere coexistence, which we might not need if we're not deploying to WebSphere portal server. But I'm comfortable where we're at right here. As you can see, it asks for a package prefix. They throw the old IBM stuff in there. I'm just going to change the package prefix to com.mckenzie.portlet. You can see the class prefix is Hello World Portlet. That will go all over the various deployment descriptors. We're only going to have the view mode added here, but you can see some of the other options that we have. Edit, help, config. And at this point, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty content. I can say, you know what? This is all I really want to do. I don't mind switching to the web perspective. And all of a sudden, I get my very handsome portlet. Now, we asked for an empty portlet. As you can see, this portlet isn't incredibly empty. It's got a bunch of garbage in here. You know, that's kind of cool for the most part. I'm just trying to do a tutorial here, so I don't want this to get too busy here. I can even got the do edit method and do help and process action. It's pretty bulked up for a basic portlet. For an empty portlet, all I really want is the do view method. And all I really want to do is just print out Hello World. So how would I do that? Well, you can see here that you've got the render request and render response object. All of portlet programming really just boils down to manipulating the request that comes in, inspecting it, and then sending some type of response to the client. In this case, all I want to do is just say, hey, I want to send a response, and I want to send it as HTML. So a good practice is always to set the content type. I'm going to set that to text HTML. And then the other thing you want to do with the response object is, well, in this case, I'm going to get the print writer. And at that point, I'm going to print something to the console. And what am I going to print? Well, of course, I'm going to print Hello World. Because, hey, it's the Hello World portlet. Now, a couple of things to take a look at here. We've got our own portlet. Notice that it extends generic portlet. There is actually a Portlet interface that defines 4 methods, but you rarely directly implement that. Usually you extend generic Portlet, and this provides you with a variety of methods like doView or doEdit or doHelp or whatever you have. The other key here is the fact that this doView method, and the view method is invoked anytime a Portlet is displayed on a page in its normal view mode, not a custom mode, just normally rendering itself. You notice that we get past a render request and a render response object. And really, anything that you want to know about the incoming request is in this render request object. Anything that you're allowed to do to the client, send information back to the client, set content types, even set cookies, things like that, that's always done through the response object. So really, Portlet programming complies to a request-response paradigm for programming. Now, for this Portlet, that's all we really need to do just to do Hello World. A couple of things to perhaps even take a look at here. One of the views I like using is the hierarchy view. I'm going to see if I can open that view. Show view, other. Is it in the Java view? Type hierarchy. Focus on and focus on the generic Portlet. Here you can actually see the number of different methods that are already defined in generic Portlet, quite a few. And you can actually see here there's a number of different Portlets that actually extend generic Portlet. Here you can actually see the different classes that generic Portlet either inherits from or implements. And you can see that it inherits from the object class, but it also implements a variety of key interfaces that are important with the Portlet 2.0 API. That includes the event Portlet interface, which has these 4 methods I mentioned before, Portlet config, and even resource serving Portlet. So generally when you're doing development, you extend generic Portlet, and that gives you most of the facilities that you need. Another couple of things to take a look at here. Every Portlet application is at its heart a servlet JSP based application, and as such every Portlet application is a web.xml file. Here we've just got a listing of welcome files, which is a bit verbose. I might trim that down a bit. Not too interesting. A little bit more interesting is the fact that we have a portlet.xml file. And here's the deployment descriptor for the portlet.xml file. Currently it's not that exciting because our Portlet doesn't do too much, but you can see that the Portlet's named Hello World Portlet. See that there's a class associated with it. That's the class that we're coding. It has things like an expiration cache. It discusses the fact that it implements a view mode. If we wanted to implement other modes, we'd have to list those here. And even for doing some display, it says what's the title. Now I can put some spaces in here. The title will be Hello World Portlet. And what if it's on a device with a limited screen size? Maybe it'll just be Hello World, and some keywords as well. So just some kind of neat things that can help out. Also notice we've got a namespace element here, which is helpful. But this simply emphasizes the fact that, sure, fundamentally we're going to be running in a web container, servlet container of some sort, but really this is a Portlet application. So it has its own unique Portlet deployment descriptor. Here's a couple of extra files. These are IBM specific. We don't have to worry too much about those because I'll probably be deploying this to a container other than WebSphere at some point in time. But for right now, I may as well actually deploy this and test it. And how do we do that? Well, I can just say run on server. It's going to say, hey, what server do you want to use? We've got our web preview server here. That's not good enough, so I need to manually define a new server. I've configured WebSphere Portal 8. It's a nice little test environment. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to have to provide a password. I'm going to have to provide a password again. Goes here and here. Notice some things like the context root, default home, personalized home. These need to be listed here as well. But we've got the default set up, so that's all happy and good. It's all set up on the local machine, so we only need to do a local copy. We'll deploy this ear file and deploy it to the server that contains the Portlet application that contains the Hello World Portlet. We click Finish, And once I click finish, the server is going to start to run. You can actually see in the console here. Console is going to eventually start pushing out some information. You can actually see at the bottom here saying, hey, I'm starting the WebSphere portal server. It's at 23%, now 100%, and now we start getting this content here. Okay, I'm going to pause this just for a sec. Won't seem like a pause to you, but this can take a couple of minutes to start up, and there's no point in just doing nothing but watching this console. So with the magic of television, I'm going to pause at 12:39. We'll see what time the server actually finishes starting up at. Okay, things are looking a little better. I've already got a web browser opening up here, so it should just be a matter of seconds. And here we go. You end up seeing Hello World being printed out in this Portlet window. And of course, this is just a Portlet fragment, a small part of the overall page that gets displayed when a portlet is rendered. That's one of the key things that makes a portlet different from a regular servlet and JSP application, that being that the portlet only really controls a small part of the page. If you actually click on this edit mode thing here, you'll actually see it looks a little bit differently. That's just part of the way, and that actually is editing the page itself, but you can see the actual title of the portlet being displayed there, and the printout Hello World. And all of that comes from this right here, response.getWriter print Hello World. Anyways, that's about it for this first introduction. That's how you create a simple Hello World portlet, develop it in Rational Application Developer 8.5 using the portlet tooling, and deploy it to a WebSphere portal test environment. Anyways, that's just one of many, so why don't you head over to theserverside.com. We've got plenty more labs on doing JSR 286 development, right from Hello World to request response programming, all the way through to doing Ajax and creating struts or even Spring portlets. Anyways, that's it for now. Until next time, happy Java.